Thank you so much, Anthony. Really, thank you. You've provided me with an amazing story to talk about. You can go to lawandcrime.com to learn a little bit more of the top trending stories of the day, but I have to talk about my new favorite mugshot, or I'm sorry, pugshot. Let's bring in Law and Crime trial analyst Jonna Spilbor to talk about this hard-hitting case, the case that has changed our nation. Can we show the pugshot again? Do we have it? Can we show it if we have it? Oh my gosh.
Look at my client. He's innocent, I tell you. Innocent.
Is this something that will go viral in the sense? It's gone viral, but you think this is going to go on T-shirts? You think this is going to go on pins?
Oh, a pug mug? Yeah, how
Amazing.
can it not? Look, his tongue, he's sticking his tongue out. Come on, it's just too cute.
You know what I love about this? Police, really tough job. Really tough job. In fact, I know there was a shooting in Las Vegas where the police were pursuing two suspects, shooting out of the front windshield. It's a really dangerous job.
Yeah.
This is where they have an opportunity to have a little fun, right?
And, you know, and they should. They ought to. Look at this. How can that not go viral? We're going to see a lot more now, you know. We're going to see a lot more doggy mugshot. Look, come on.
Do you, as we look at the face of evil...
Yes, pure evil.
Do you think he's learned his lesson?
Oh, I hope so. I really hope so, because we don't want him to be like a second felony offender. Then he's going to do some serious time.
Didn't his owners kind of like punish him with doggy treats at one point?
Maybe. Do you think he has accidents on the rug?
This guy?
He looks like that kind of.
This pug doesn't play by the same rules as other dogs.
No,
this guy goes to the beat of his own drum. I'm telling you that right now. No, but like this is so fun, that this is so interesting that in a way, let's take a step. The police, it's been a really tough couple of years with them.
Yes.
Do you think this is a way to make their image, rehabilitate their image in a way?
Because they're human beings?
Right, to humanize them a little bit?
This isn't an actual police dog, right? They work with police dogs all the time who have a job to do. They're sniffing out drugs. They're sniffing out corpses. This little guy applied for the job, and all he got was a mugshot. Poor thing.
I can look at this all day. I'm sorry. I don't even want to do the rest of the show. Why do you think this went viral? What do you think about this?
Because it's cuteness overload. That's why. Look it.
Do you think that the owners are going to exploit this a little bit?
They should.
They should.
I hope they
for monetary gain.
Yes.
How many times do you see these cat videos or things that, and you just babies, you know, your baby, your pet, you exploit it, you get money. It's ingenious in today's day and age.
It's clever. We love our pets like they're family. Doesn't matter that they're furry and have 4 legs. We love them like family, unless they're fish.
Yeah, no, what are you going to do with a fish? You're not going to do anything with a fish. But do you think that, here's the question, do you think they're going to keep them running around anymore? Do you think that they're going to let this happen again?
No, you know what? No. I think they're going to build a fence.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Get a better, maybe, harness. That's what they're going to have to do.
You know, Anthony, Anthony finds our stories, and I have to tell you, you just brought such joy to our lives today, so thank you so much. Go to lawandcrime.com to learn a little bit more of these pug stories and other stories that are trending, including, you know, some serious things in the news as well. But unfortunately, we're going to have to switch gears here and get a little serious, because we're going to talk now about the James Colley case out of Florida. So this man, you see him right there, he faces the death penalty if convicted of this double homicide. His wife, Amanda Colley, her best friend, Lindy Dobbins, they were both gunned down. Defense is not disputing that. He's not disputing that. But he's saying, wait a second, this isn't first-degree murder. Let's look at what, you know, our relationship with Amanda. She violated the restraining order just as much as I did. We had a good relationship. But she took it over the level. She took it over the line with getting into a relationship with Lamar Dauberly. And she was the one who tore this whole family apart. Will the jury ultimately believe that? Or will they be persuaded more by the prosecution? So what I want to do as we wait for a live feed today and we recap this case, I want to play you some of the prosecution's closing argument where they summarize why they believe this man should be found guilty. Take a look. Okay, that's some of the prosecution's closing argument. Let's bring in Jonna real quick. I know we don't have too much time. Real quick, do you sense that this is a stronger case for premeditation or not?
Definitely. I think the prosecution is going to be able to prove, the jury's going to agree, that there was time for this defendant to reflect. It wasn't so much, it wasn't one of those heat of passion although he's going to argue that it was heat of passion, and he was jealous, and he had issues, and apparently he was medicated. But I think the premeditation is there.
Well, we'll have to see. There's a lot more to cover. We'll be back after the short break. Stay tuned. Well, you hear the prosecution hammering away at the defendant and saying why this was a brutal, premeditated attack. But was it? Let's bring back in Jonna Spilbor. So she's making a great case, but here's the thing. Can't they say that the defense is doing everything to try to say that this is not first-degree murder because they don't want their client to face the death penalty?
Right.
But here's the thing. They're trying to argue second-degree murder. If they're saying, okay, the prosecution, you say his target was Lamar Dobberly, the romantic interest of Amanda, and then she just happened to be there and caught in the crossfire and killed her purposely. That's not really premeditation, right?
In my book, it is.
Is it?
Yeah. This defendant took off the table the one defense that I think may have helped him get away from the premeditation and the first degree and the death penalty, and that was the involuntary intoxication. Because when you listen to the prosecution and you go through the case, he had time to reflect while he's in the house picking people off with a gun. He had moments to reflect before he shot and killed anybody.
So in other words, that moment of reflection, it's not like he's in a little lair thinking about that he's going to kill. It could be happening right at that moment.
Exactly. It can happen in an instant. And he had time to reflect. That's going to get them the first-degree murder. Not to mention the fact that he was where he wasn't supposed to be, which will get him the felony murder.
Why? We'll talk about that in a minute. That's the other way when we come back from the break. But the idea that they went away from this involuntary intoxication, this, oh, I had a cocktail of drugs in my system.
Right.
Why did they go away with that?
It makes absolutely no sense, because now it's not going to be on the table for appeal. And I've handled a lot of clients, defendants, that were on Ambien. Like one of the drugs he said he was on was Ambien. You have no recollection whatsoever. I've had people get in the car, drive into other people's mailboxes in a complete blackout.
And they actually don't remember what they did?
And it's the drug does that. The problem is you voluntarily take the Ambien, so that gets rid of involuntary. If he had a combination of drugs, though, and he was not aware that Ambien was going to react with some other drugs in his system, maybe he could, that involuntary intoxication could hold. Why take it off the table? It would require an expert testimony. Maybe he didn't want to bring in an expert, but it doesn't make sense to me.
We believe they may bring that in if he should be found guilty, and then the penalty phase comes about, and so we'll have to see. This is a case to watch. We're in verdict watch, so there's a lot to cover. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Okay, so let's try to understand the defense's closing argument right there. That was part one of it. What you're seeing there is a live feed into the James Colley courtroom. The judge is still instructing the jurors before they go to their deliberations. I spoke a little out of hand before. I jumped the gun. I was already too excited about it. I thought the jury jumped to deliberations. They're still being instructed by the judge. Nothing too exciting to jump in and talk about yet, but as soon as the jury begins their deliberations, and this is going to be some deliberating for them, and as soon as they have a verdict, we'll make sure to jump back into that courtroom. Want to bring back on Jonna Spilbor? Let's talk about the first part of the defense's closing argument. Blaming the victim, blaming Amanda for what happened.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Very offensive. It is very offensive. It rarely works with a jury when you blame the victim for anything. And that's exactly what this defense attorney is doing. Somehow it's her fault that she's dead because she kept pulling him back into her life. I don't know. Going to court and getting a restraining order or order of protection, as we call it here, to me, that's not pulling somebody back in. That's pushing them away.
But couldn't you say, look, they didn't have a horrible relationship in the sense that they were both violating this restraining order? She was talking to him, he was talking to her. They were trying to work things out with their children. And then she's the one who had this other relationship, and she's the one who was teasing him, and she's the one who, what I'm saying is, couldn't it be second-degree murder, not first-degree? Maybe he was planning to do everything right, but he snapped when he lost it with that photograph of a shirtless Lamar Dobberly that he saw.
Right. So the second-degree heat of passion might have flown if he didn't systematically go throughout that house and kill, 2 of the 4 people in here. It's not going to fly. Let's put it this way. Even if the jury were to buy that argument with respect to his estranged wife, what's the excuse for the friend? There is none. That's a first-degree murder conviction if I ever saw one.
That's a pretty good point. Let's listen to a little bit more from the defense's closing argument. Again, trying to reshape the relationship in the minds of the jury between Amanda and James. Take a look. Some more of that defense's argument, trying to change the image of Amanda Colley, the victim, in the minds of the jury. Let's see if it's effective. Jonna Spilbor, is it enough to convince one juror to feel sympathy for James Colley here, trying to understand this is a guy, they shared children together, wanted to do the right thing, or is this just a cold-blooded killer?
All right. Or is it somewhere in between that's still going to net him a first-degree murder conviction and possibly get him sentenced to death? I think it can be in between the two, and that result could still happen.
Are they at least putting in the minds of the jury that perhaps this is not a death penalty situation? Do you see this, if he's convicted, as a death penalty case?
Honestly, okay, so I'll give the defense some points here. It probably should not be charged as a death penalty case if the argument is convincing that he was just kind of jealous and out of his mind and sort of in a rage, right? As opposed to, I'm going to plot and plan and kill my wife and anybody who gets in my way of doing it, right? Her best friend. Because obviously when you're in a family court situation and you're getting separated and you have kids involved, it can make you a little nuts, but most people don't commit murder.
Thank goodness most people don't commit murder, but here's the question. They have kids together, right? Mm-hmm. That is going to be a big factor if he's convicted in the death penalty part, right? Can you really take a father away from his... And by the way, they'll probably not want to have anything ever to do with him again, but...
Those kids will be taken away from him so fast if he's convicted.
But the idea they're still his kids, is that a factor in a death penalty case?
I don't think so, because you have a father, like, where were the kids when he was killing everybody in his former marital residence, right? Where were they then? I think a jury might say, I need to keep these kids away from this dad. I am going to convict this guy, because even if he doesn't get sentenced to death, he's going away for a long time.
You've seen that before, where cases are domestic horror situations like this, where someone is convicted even though they share kids.
Oh, absolutely. And I've seen kids taken away from parents for crimes much less severe than this.
Right.
So, yeah.
So that's not an ultimate factor. I wonder how much his demeanor in the courtroom is going to play for the jurors as well. As I said, it's quite bizarre. He's jittery.
It's weird, right?
A little strange.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And jurors see that. When you're shaking your head and you're doing things, like, jurors are looking. I don't know what they're going to make of it. They're not supposed to consider it, but they're seeing it, obviously.
Well, what do you think about him putting his head in his face and, didn't want to hear what the medical examiner was describing the injuries?
Is that remorse? Is that what he wants to convey?
Yeah, it's hard to say.
It's very hard to say.
Very hard to say. A lot of things are hard to say in this case. So we're going to go for a quick break. When we come back, we're going to play more of the defense's closing argument. Okay, let's try to understand what the defense is doing here. Let's bring back in Law and Crime trial analyst Jonna Spilbor. You chuckled because you're trying to figure out, are they saying something set him off, he shot blindly at the house, and he just caught 2 victims? Is that what you're getting at, or something a little different?
That seems to be the gist, and I'm only chuckling because this case is not funny. I'm chuckling because the more I listen to the closing argument by defense counsel, the guiltier this guy gets in my mind. And that's not the objective. When you're defending somebody and you're giving your closing argument, you're trying to get the jury to come around to your way of thinking, and with all the evidence that was presented in the 4 days before in this trial, for him to say, like, this is what struck me, and I said to you off the air, like, did he just say, we don't know what set him off? Because if you're trying to lessen the severity of a first-degree murder, potential first-degree murder, you should probably know what set him off, right? You need to give the jury a reason to believe that something did set him off. And if you can't explain that, if you can't point to the thing, you leave the jury going, well, if you don't know, then I don't know. I guess it's first-degree murder to me. I mean, because a guy goes through the house with a gun, picking people off, killed not just his estranged wife, but her best friend. He had time to think about it. So if you can't tell me what exactly set him off in both instances, you're not lessening the severity of this crime from a first degree to something else.
Jonna's not convinced. Jonna's not convinced by the defense. Let's hear them play a little bit more of the defense's closing argument where they try to attack premeditation. And then I have to ask Jonna a very important question. Our very own, we have an article up on Law and Crime about it by our very own Aaron Keller, talking about what the defense strategy is. And I'm going to ask John about it. So here's more the defense's closing argument. Take a look. Okay. So the defense is doing two things. First, they're saying our client is not guilty of first-degree murder for two different reasons. One, it's not premeditated murder. It's, if anything, second-degree murder. Now, under Florida statute, the murder statute, they can also find him guilty of first-degree murder if he committed a felony, such as burglary or aggravated stalking, and during the course of that felony, Amanda and Lindy Dobbins died. That would be the felony murder rule. But Jonna, as our very own Aaron Keller analyzed, what he says the defense is doing is saying, okay, first, this is not aggravated stalking because Amanda and James Colley both wanted to see each other. They were both violating the court order. Also, burglary? Nothing. If anything, it's trespass. His clothes were in that house. He has a right to be there. What do you think about those arguments?
I love Aaron, and I love the way he writes. And if the defense attorney was able to convince the jury of that, I would give him points. But I think what the defense is doing with that argument, they're not trying to appeal to the jury, because you can't ask a jury to come at a case with an X-Acto knife, right? You really can't. What the defense is doing is really playing to the appellate court, because those are great arguments to make at the appellate level. If you don't have an underlying felony, then if they convict him of under the felony murder rule, you have good grounds to get it overturned if somebody finds that the underlying offenses were not felonies.
It's a little complicated, but we saw it in the Tex MacGyver case. They found him guilty of felony murder in that situation. Mm-hmm. So do we have not enough faith in the jury that they'll follow it? Because it's complicated. Or is it just something, like you said, meant for appeal?
I think I don't want to say that we don't have faith in the jury, but I think when you're looking at something like this, first of all, trespass, did he let himself into the house without permission? Because if he did that with the intent to commit any crime therein, he's committed a burglary. There goes your felony murder rule. I mean, he's committed a burglary. In terms of if you have an order of protection against somebody, even if if I have one against you, but I want to come over for lunch, I'm not in any trouble. You are.
Yeah.
So
I know it's complicated. It's
right.
complicated. It's not easy. We have a lot more to cover right after this. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Law and Crime, everybody. We are going to be covering the James Colley case out of Florida. We are in verdict watch. We are waiting to jump back live into that courtroom because as soon as the jury has a verdict, we don't want you to miss anything. Now, if they should find this man guilty of first-degree murder, okay, first-degree murder in connection with the death of his wife, Amanda Colley, or his estranged wife, Amanda Colley, and her best friend, Lindy Dobbins, this becomes a death penalty case then. And we go straight into the penalty phase. There's no break, so we're going to have to hear it. And that's a totally different situation than what we have now. Before we talk about the James Colley case, though, I want to talk about the other stories that are trending in the news today. Take a look.
Here are today's top crime stories trending on lawandcrime.com and across the country. A former daycare provider in Minnesota who hung a toddler from a noose and mowed down two men with her minivan will avoid prison time after pleading guilty. 43-year-old Natalia Carria was charged with attempted murder and third-degree assault for the November 2016 incident when she hung a 16-month-old boy by his neck using an improvised noose. Another parent was able to save the child before Carria fled the scene in her minivan, striking a pedestrian and cyclist before being apprehended. Carrier could have faced up to 13 years in prison, but was sentenced to 10 years probation and credited with 20 months for time served. A woman in Texas was arrested after she allegedly bit off a part of another woman's nose and ingested the body part. 41-year-old Jessica Collins was charged with assault bodily injury after she reportedly took a bite out of the victim following an altercation over cigarettes and alcohol in the victim's home. Doctors say the victim will need plastic surgery for the injuries she sustained. Collins was released on bond earlier this week. Police in New Jersey released a mugshot of a suspect they apprehended sneaking through yards, this lovable pug. Officers in Cape May found the intrepid canine a street away from the town's famous beaches. Investigators released the pug shot of the bad boy on Facebook, hoping someone will claim the lovable runaway bandit. Those were today's top crime stories. I'm Anthony Velez for Law & Crime.
That was our intrepid reporter, Anthony Velez, delivering the high-profile cases. Anthony, thank you so much. Go to lawandcrime.com to learn a little bit more about the other news that's trending today. But Anthony, I have to thank you because that pug story, I could look at it 1,000 times. It just brings me such happiness. Can we there we go. There we go. I would love for this to be on all day, just to have this, maybe some music in the background. I'm here with Jonna Spilbor. Yeah. My gosh, does it get more cute?
Well, I think we have to give a hand to the Cape May Police Department because the streets of Cape May are a heck of a lot more safer now with that pug off the street.
He was running around backyards, right?
Yeah, trespassing all over the place.
Just breaking laws,
heading
taking
to the
names.
That's right, heading to the beach. Come on, pug.
Pug shot. You know what's interesting? I was thinking about it. It's so cute for us. Is it terrifying for that little guy?
You know what? He doesn't look terrified. Obviously, look, he couldn't even sit on his own. He wants to get out of there. He needs another treat. He's not spending a lot of time in the police department.
Well, he was behind bars. There's actually a picture of him behind bars, but they said that he was fast asleep. I think his name is Little Bean, and Bean was asleep after an exciting time behind bars. So, you know, he had an exciting day.
Crime sprees will tucker you out.
But this is a good move for the police, right? In the sense that when they have to rehabilitate their image after years of it not being so good in the news, this is something that's good. And you mentioned it a little bit before, what the benefit of that is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, cops are human, too, right? Lawyers are human, judges and cops are human. And this really humanizes. They did a good thing, and they kind of made fun of it, and they gave us all joy in having that mugshot of a little pug with his tongue sticking out.
Now here's an interesting part of our system here. His bail was paid in cookies. That seems to be a reward for him. You see something off there?
Oh, yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Rewarding the wrongdoer. That's sending the wrong message.
There's a problem here. Yeah. There's an injustice happening in our justice system.
Boy.
You know, bail is supposed to be a punishment for the suspect,
well,
right?
It's, you know, I think now he might be more inclined to do this again in other people's backyards if the reward is a cookie.
Is this the start of Bean's journey or the end of Bean's journey? Do you think that he is going to become a viral sensation like Grumpy Cat, and perhaps there'll be pictures of him on T-shirts or other kinds of memorabilia?
Yeah, I would say I would definitely buy a coffee mug with that pug on it.
You
Wouldn't
would,
you?
right?
Yes, of course I would.
Would we have it here on Law and Crime?
Why not?
Right.
Right? And every Cape May, like, touristy shop, there's going to be his face.
See, now that's a good move. Have that on Cape May.
Raise some money.
I would 100% buy a hat that had Cape May with that on the top of it.
Yeah.
Now, why did this become a viral sensation? There's cute animals all the time. Why did he become a viral sensation?
Well, first of all, cute animals don't ordinarily get arrested. So there's that.
Clearly, you haven't been hanging out with the right people. But, okay.
Right. That's why it went viral, because it's cuteness overload. Of course it went viral.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I hope there's not copycats, though, who try to do this, because this was a natural kind of thing.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we might see him like, who's that Batman dad? Like, he just keeps popping up everywhere in different situations. This pug could end up just popping up everywhere.
If this little guy made a public appearance, would you go to perhaps get his paw autograph of some kind?
I would do that. I probably wouldn't pay more than $5 for the ticket, but I would go just to see, like a one-time thing.
You think his days of crime are over?
Not only do I think they're over, he might get deputized. We might see him in a cop uniform sometime soon. I'm just saying. You heard it here first, Jesse. You heard it here first.
Jonna, we can only wish. We can only hope. Now, I wish there was an easy way for me to make this transition.
There's not.
But I really can't. So unfortunately, well, we have to drop the pug shot story. Let's just show him one more time. Bye, little guy. We have to switch gears, and we both have to get a little serious.
Yes, we do.
So, we're talking about the James Colley case out of Florida. This man who has been described as a brutal murderer, a cold-blooded murderer. He is on trial for first-degree murder in the death of his estranged wife and her best friend by going on a shooting rampage. We've seen video. We've heard audio of how frightening this was. The jury is in deliberations right now. We've played for you so far today the prosecution's closing argument, the defense's closing argument. Let's play you right now the prosecution's rebuttal argument, and this rebuttal closing argument. This is their last opportunity to convince the jurors. Take a look. Okay, so this is the prosecution's rebuttal closing argument, their last opportunity to convince the jury of their points. Now, they're saying that all the defense is bringing out is a distraction. To say that Amanda Colley, the victim, is the one to blame for this is a distraction. To say that James Colley's sister having the guns in her car and whether she knew about it, it's a distraction. Playing the voicemail again. All what matters here. Let's bring back in Law and Crime trial analyst Jonna Spilbor. Is it a distraction or not?
It's a defense tactic, yes. But she made short work of the fact, like, I was offended, we talked about this in a different segment. By blaming the victim, I think you run the risk of offending everybody in the entire jury, because it's clearly not her. She's dead. It's not her fault she's dead. He pulled the trigger and shot her, as well as her best friend. And the prosecution made sure to attack that in her rebuttal, as she should have. She did a good job. That's going to be the last thing that the jurors hear. I think it's going to work.
Well, that's one part of everything the jurors, last thing jurors are going to hear, because we have some more of her rebuttal argument, a little bit more. I want to play that for you after this short break, and you can really understand, if you're sitting in the jury, which way will they go? You heard the prosecution, you heard the defense, now you're hearing the rebuttal. It's a lot of conflicting arguments, a lot of different law, and a lot of facts. We'll cover a lot more of it after this short break. Stay tuned. Prosecution is saying, do not believe the defense. Do not take the bait and say, let's blame Amanda Colley, the victim, for what happened. Let's bring on Jonna Spilbor, Law and Crime trial analyst. Keep seeing that back and forth about not trying to blame Amanda. But if you look at the facts of it, they were in communication. They were talking about their children. In fact, the defense made the argument that if there was such a problem with James Colley, if Amanda really feared him so much, why let the kids around him? Why even be in communication with him in the first place? Is there any validity to that argument?
No, it's quite common when people split up that they could be a perfectly wonderful parent and the kids can have all the contact in the world. But when you're being a jerk or obnoxious, or you're threatening your former spouse, your soon-to-be former spouse, that person deserves protection. And that's what an injunction, or we call it an order of protection, some people call it a restraining order, is designed to do. And she had one in place. He violated it.
Isn't it just amazing when you think about the worst possible scenario? We have these restraining orders. We hear about estranged couples. This is the worst thing that could ever happen. Not only is he ordered by a court to stay away from her that morning, but it was later that day that he shot her.
Exactly. And took away a parent from his own children, and now he's going to go away, even if he doesn't get the death penalty, because I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the jury's going to come back with a guilty verdict on at least one of these counts. He's going to go away for a long time. Now you have children with no parent. And that's something, as a parent, he should have thought about when he was, loading the guns and driving over there.
Taking a parent away from children, does that become a factor in the death penalty part?
I don't think it will be so much, because if the jury finds him guilty, they already know he's not a likable guy and that he's capable of taking another life because he took two. Jury could think they are protecting these children if they get rid of daddy. Because what kind of relationship is a father going to have with his children from the big house? Because that's where he's going to go if he lives.
You make a good point. There's been so much great testimony in this case, but I will say this right now. The piece of testimony that really got me the most was from Rachel Hendricks. She is the surviving witness. She was there on the day of the shooting, and she said a bullet grazed her shoulder. Let's play you some of her testimony from earlier in the case. Surviving witness, you don't usually get that. Jonna Spilbor, from our perspective, you just got to explain, what's it like to have a surviving witness as a witness?
In a case like this, I think it's not only beneficial to the prosecution, but it's almost a little bit crucial, because this witness can really counter the tone of the defense with, oh, well, you know, he was just trespassing and she was just as much to blame as he was. You got somebody who was in the house who said it was ransacked. He was a madman. You
don't get that. It's amazing. Someone that was actually there. We'll play you some more of her testimony after this. Stay tuned. You never get a surviving witness. I mean, you do, but it's rare to get a surviving witness who was right there, describing every moment of the shooting. You can only imagine how tough it was for her to testify. At one point in the very beginning of her testimony, she had to identify the defendant, and she took a step back, she said, took a breath, and looked at him. It was not an easy moment for her, but the details of that account are crucial. But it made me think of something, and I want to bring back Jonna Spilbor. So the idea was that he had came to that house to find Lamar Dobberly, the romantic interest of Amanda Colley. Do you think if he would have killed Lamar Dobberly, he would have stopped there? Or would he have still gone after Amanda, Lindy, Rachel?
If we are to believe the theory that this was a crime of passion, then no, he would not have stopped. In order for him to go there on a mission to kill one person, kill him, and then stop is first-degree murder, which the defense theory is no, this was not that. So I think if that hypothetical had happened, we would have had one more dead body.
I think it's the killing of Lindy that probably maybe did him in more than anything, because she was just an innocent person there, and so was Amanda. But if you want to say that he was fueled with fire and anger and wanted to kill Amanda, okay, but to have a Lindy too, that becomes a different story, in my opinion. And Jonna, we're going to have to talk a little bit more about that after this short break. And we have a lot to talk about. So we are going to go to a break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a minute. Now, you have to analyze every witness. That's the job of every juror. They have to determine the credibility, the appearance, everything about a witness. So let's bring back in Jonna Spilbor. We were talking about it as we were watching that. Her demeanor, and every demeanor of every witness is important to determine their credibility. What did you think about her demeanor?
Yeah, so I don't think she's incredible, but I do find it interesting because, first, when we just had that shot, her body language, she's got her arms in front of her, which is typically like, I don't want to be here pose.
Well,
right?
I don't blame her.
But she's also a victim here, and this is her opportunity to tell the jury what's going on. And she seemed very emotionless. And I think I find that strange, because if I had to flee from a house because I just saw two people who I know and care about get gunned down and you know, there was an active shooter, I'd still be like this.
But isn't it shock? I mean, she's testifying in an open court against the man who almost killed her. Isn't it fear? Isn't it shock? Isn't her heart racing 1,000 miles per hour?
It doesn't appear to be racing. I mean, the only thing that I saw moving on her was her jaw, because she was chewing gum, which is also a little bit unusual when you're testifying in any case.
But isn't that a way just to feel comfortable?
Maybe, I mean, maybe she had to take something to relax her. That could be.
Okay, let me ask you this, though. The credibility, the actual substance of her testimony, to have this kind of witness is so rare, right?
Oh, yeah. And at least, like, she's not embellishing. She's, if anything, she's very matter of fact. Like, this is what happened. This is what I saw. She's not, you know, there aren't any crocodile tears. And maybe that will go a long way with the jury.
And let's not forget, it was backed up by the video of her running away.
Yes.
Also, the 911 phone call that she was placed.
Yes.
I mean, it's backed up by so much. So, yeah. Jonna, listen, thank you so much for joining us
this
morning.
It's time to go already?
Unfortunately, I'm kicking you out of here.
Man, I'm going to go clear the streets of pugs. That's what I'm going to go to. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Pleasure as always.
Thanks.
All right, everybody. So we are going to go to a break. When we come back, there's a lot more to talk about in the James Colley case out of Florida. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a minute.